Coming up, we're gearing up to go racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
If I forget something, things have gone really, really bad.
We'll go under the hood with Chase Elliott's interior mechanic.
Immediately, our action plan got put into place.
The team effort it took to get Kyle Busch back in the car. And NASCAR reveals the nominees for the next class of Hall of Famers.
A little shaky right now.
It's time to put the pedal to the metal. Around the Track, brought to you by Fox 46 WJZY, starts now! Welcome and thanks for tuning in to Around the Track. This is a new 30-minute show dedicated to NASCAR on Fox 46 WJZY. I'm Anthony Flores. He is Josh Sims, and we are joined by Winston Kelly, the Executive Director of the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Well, that's right, Winston, and it was a big week for a few names added to the list of hopefuls for the Hall of Fame.
Yes, one of my favorite days of the year when we announce the nominees for the next class, in this case, the class of 2017, that'll be voted on in May of this year. And we've got such a diverse group. 15 carried over by vote. They didn't automatically carry over. And 5 new names. And we've got such a diverse group in Ron Hornaday, our first Camping World Truck Series driver to make the list. Another incredibly successful car owner in Jack Rouse. An engine builder extraordinaire added to the list in Waddell Wilson. Our first media member in Ken Squire, and also one of the modern day eras and Iron Men in Ricky Rudd. So very diverse group, no 2 of any category added to the list.
Sounds like a great list, and of course we'll also preview race number 2 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. But before we look ahead, of course we got to look back. What a wild finish at the Daytona 500.
And here they come to the line. This is the finish of the Daytona 500. Side by side, bouncing off each other.
Unbelievable. I think it was Denny Hamlin.
I have it as Hamlin.
Was decided in what a way to kick off the NASCAR season. It was the closest finish ever in the Great American Race, and Denny Hamlin captured the checkered flag, just edged out Martin Truex Jr. to win his first Daytona 500. Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Chase Elliott had their days cut a little short due to crashes during the race. And Winston, you were there at Daytona International Speedway and were able to interview Denny Hamlin working for MRN. What was that like?
Well, anytime you're in victory lane, it's exciting. At Daytona, it goes up to another notch. And this being the first win for Toyota was a really big deal for them. Denny's been with Joe Gibbs the longest of any of his drivers. He really wanted to give Joe that next win to go along with the one he got with Dale Jarrett back in 1993. But how close it was. And the thing that was interesting, and I thought this was the case, and Denny admitted it, when he jumped up on that outside lane coming down the back straightaway, he was more blocking for his teammates that were ahead of him. And Matt Kenseth, kind of a quasi-teammate, and Martin Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch was up there, and he said, man, I got this run, and I had to go for it, but I didn't want to wreck all the cars and have Coach mad at all of us. And just the way it worked out and then coming down that close, it was a very exciting ending to the race. And like I said, any victory lane's exciting, but this one was one of those that had that little extra.
And Winston, let's talk a little bit about Chase Elliott, obviously the youngest pole sitter in the history of the Daytona 500, but he crashed 20 laps in. How much of a learning experience was that for Elliott?
Well, I think the whole week was a learning experience for him. And one of the things that I'd point out is the track was so much slicker. The cars were much more loose on Sunday with the hotter temperatures. So I don't know how much of it was just Chase or somebody took the air off his spoiler, but that guy has got it. When he won in the Xfinity Series, what was then the Nationwide at Darlington in his first race, it was a great learning experience throughout the whole week, and I'm sure he'll learn from that. But he wasn't the only one with troubles.
And speaking of that, Dale Earnhardt Jr. crashed late in the race with about 30 laps to go. After he got off the track, he said, well, I had a little problem side drafting. Someone who was the favorite going in, and surprised that he had those problems late in the race.
Well, and he was so strong in that race on Thursday. The way he went around Kevin Harvick, made the pass without any help, doesn't happen very often at a restrictor plate track. Then he went around Denny Hamlin and took the lead. And he had gotten a little bit back in the pack by how pit strategy and them taking on 4 tires at one of the pit stops. And I have to give it to him. He was running back in 6th, and he was trying to make something happen because that outside lane was not moving as good because we didn't have as much grip. And that's where you get into that side drafting. And I was as surprised as anybody else that he lost it there. But, to his credit, he took responsibility for it and said, we'll learn from it and go on.
I got to say, I was at the race last week, and the thing that stuck out to me, aside from the race, Daytona Rising. I mean, what did you think of those new renovations?
I thought it was phenomenal. Got the pleasure to go up there a couple of different times before the race or throughout the race weekend, and to see it literally was like a stadium complex that, you know, you think of Bank of America Stadium, you can go behind the stadium and the grandstands and be in a lounge type area. You had that all throughout the facility, different lounge areas, the concourse areas, the escalators. So I thought it was a phenomenal facility, great eye lines, moving the front seats back a little bit, gave them great sight lines, not just along the front straightaway. So Joey Chetwood, Lisa France Kennedy, and that entire team did a phenomenal job with it. And the energy. One of the other things I heard from the drivers throughout the weekend, Dale Earnhardt Jr. told me this, Kevin Harvick told me this, that there was so much energy in the motorhome lot, in the garage area, and from the drivers and the crews, as well as from the fans. You could feel it.
All right, with Daytona in the books, we now move on to the ATL. Atlanta Motor Speedway is home to some of the best action in NASCAR. Here's a look at the 56-year history of the legendary speedway.
Jimmy Johnson wins the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500.
That was the scene at Atlanta Motor Speedway last year when Jimmy Johnson captured the checkered flag. In the 56-year history of the raceway, 44 different drivers have made the trip to victory lane. In fact, the last 7 Sprint Cup races at the 1.54-mile-long track have seen 7 different winners. No one has celebrated more in Atlanta than the Intimidator, Dale Earnhardt Sr. Earnhardt raced to the checkered flag a record 9 times. Atlanta is the king of 500-mile races, hosting more than any other track in NASCAR history. 2016 will be the 93rd consecutive 500-mile race and the 101st overall. When the Speedway made its debut on July 31st, 1960, it became the 7th super speedway to host a Cup race. Atlanta is the home track for NASCAR Hall of Famer Bill Elliott. Awesome Bill from Dawsonville won at his hometown racetrack 6 times, and his son Chase is getting set to make his first trip around the track he grew up near as a Cup driver. Bill's words of advice for his son Chase:
you know, have fun with it, because you know you don't know when it's going to end. You don't know where you're going to end up.
All right, so let's take a closer look at what makes Atlanta Motor Speedway so special. Of course, it's the racetrack. The 1.54-mile quad oval track is home to some of the most exciting action NASCAR has to offer. Now, that's due to the Speedway's aged abrasive surface that results in a slick track. The asphalt repaved last in 1997. Of course, you've got the new lower downforced aero package in Sprint Cup Series that has made the track a favorite amongst drivers.
Well, Atlanta is such a great racetrack. You know, every driver will say it's one of their favorites. You know, the surface is old, but it's great for racing because the tires do wear out, and it's what the drivers have been wanting for so many years, which is tire fall off. We want us to go fast for a few laps, the tires fall off, and then we slide around. So that is the old school type racing. It's probably the last true racetrack that we have like that.
And the 500-mile race on this track is sure to provide some fireworks this afternoon.
And Winston, why is Atlanta Motor Speedway such a favorite for the drivers?
I think the speed, the fact that you really have to wheel the car, like the driver said, that this moves around, it doesn't have a whole lot of grip. And if you look at the results, there's so many incredibly close finishes, just could go down so many of them, but it's just it's a driver's racetrack. They have to wheel that race car.
Now, is there any added pressure for Chase Elliott, being that he's from nearby Dawsonville, and his father, of course, had so much success at the home track?
You know, if there is, for a 20-year-old, he handles it incredibly well, and I think he knows he's in it for the long run, and he's not worried just about this weekend. He's interested in getting the learning experience that he can, so I don't think he's going to have any additional pressure because he's so good at putting that aside.
How much does the driving style change this week from last week from Daytona? You're moving in the lower downforce and softer tires at Atlanta.
Apples and oranges, because the restrictor plate track is an animal in and to itself. And when we had the low downforce packages last year at Kentucky and Darlington, you really saw those drivers that tended to like a looser race car, meaning the back of the car kind of wants to come around a little bit. So I think it's going to be great racing because they're out of the throttle a little bit more. It's going to bunch them together again like we saw last year. So I think it's going to be an exceptional race.
Now it's a big week for the NASCAR Hall of Fame. 5 new names have been added to the list of nominees for the 2017 NASCAR Hall of Fame class. Now, drivers Ricky Rudd and Ron Hornaday Jr., team owner Jack Roush, engine builder Waddell Wilson, and legendary play-by-play man Ken Squire are among the new nominees. They joined the 15 nominees who appeared on the ballot last year to make up 20 individuals eligible for the Hall of Fame consideration this year. From the list of 20 nominees, 5 inductees will be elected by the NASCAR Hall of Fame voting panel.
And Winston, how would you describe this year's nominees for the 2017 NASCAR Hall of Fame class?
Diverse, deep, a lot of different options, and it gets harder every year for the voting panel to select just 5 because the differentiation in their success, whether it's on the track, number of wins, or their contributions off the racetrack, there's not, the 200 win folks or the 80 win folks like we've had in the past. So it's a very diverse group of people, but also there's so many different options and there's no wrong answers.
And when you look at that diverse group like you described it, is there anyone that stands out the most to you?
There's not. I think there's a number that I could sit here and speculate might have a good chance of getting in, but there's none of the 20 that's going to surprise me if they get in. Absolutely none. There's some years we've gone into the voting and you knew there's 1 or 2 you kind of expected. This year, there's none of the 20 that would surprise me if they were voted in this year.
And when will the 5 nominees find out if they've been elected?
On May the 25th, the voting panel meets and it will be announced that night at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. So it'll be May the 25th.
Winston Kelly, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your NASCAR knowledge. All right, coming up, Kyle Busch's season almost ended before it even began last year. A wreck at Daytona kept Busch outside of the car for 11 races. How a local company got him back in the car, helping him complete one of the greatest comebacks in NASCAR history.
A major announcement coming from Stewart Haas Racing this week. The team has won 2 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series titles and 30 races with Chevrolet, but will be running Ford Fusions next year. The 4-car team, made up of Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart, and Danica Patrick, will face major changes as Tony Stewart will walk away from NASCAR after this year. Well, last season got off to a painful start for Kyle Busch. A crash in the Xfinity race at Daytona forced Busch to miss 11 races due to injuries. Now, our Logan Sherrill found out, a local physical therapy group, how they got Busch back on his feet, back in the car, and back to Daytona.
They can't do this for 10 laps.
Eric Jones around, back across the field. The big one, part 2 at Daytona.
Yeah, they can't do this.
I mean, he hit that wall head on. It looked like he never even slowed down.
This was the scene at the end of the 2015 season-opening Xfinity Series race at Daytona International Speedway. NASCAR driver Kyle Busch hit the inside wall at 150 miles an hour, resulting in a compound fracture to his right leg and a broken left foot. Now, what easily could have been the end of Busch's career was the starting block for another team.
Immediately, our action plan got put into place.
It wasn't a NASCAR team who sprang into action. It was a physical therapy team, Ortho Carolina Motorsports, and one of the leading members is Ken Breath.
Pull back with both and you take all the weight in one leg and extend it.
Ortho Carolina Motorsports has been rehabbing drivers and crew members for nearly 10 years. They work with NASCAR teams both big and small, but no matter the size of the teams, drivers make the rehabilitation process more fluid.
A typical patient says, oh, it hurts when I do that, but won't necessarily be able to explain where it hurts or the pressures in this area, where a lot of these drivers, they give such great feedback.
He wanted to know everything I was feeling.
Kyle Busch began working with Ortho Carolina Motorsports just days after having surgery on his leg and foot. He compared his work with Ken to dissecting a race car, which made it easier to pinpoint exactly what body part needed to receive attention.
This stretch, it's hurting here and it's doing this and it's pulling there, and he would be able to decipher through all those different things like a crew chief and make sure that we were doing all the right things and not hurting something else down the road.
When we're honest with the patient or driver in Kyle's case and say, hey, we're going to do this, you're going to probably feel a lot of discomfort with this one. If they know that going in and then it comes true and they're like, okay, you're not going to hamstring me on this. You're going to be honest with me. You're going to tell me when things are going to hurt.
That's where it started from, and I think the
the trust relationship and honesty relationship just kind of built over time. They buy into it a little better, and so you earn that trust and you develop that rapport and know when to push them.
It was a long road to recovery for Busch. He had to watch 11 races from outside the driver's seat of his number 18 Toyota. But with the help of Ken and his team, he overcame every obstacle thrown in front of him to fight his way to one of the greatest comeback stories in sports history by winning his first Sprint Cup championship.
Ken was a huge part of our team and what it took in order to get better, to get back in the car. What the fight was like when I got back in the car to get back to winning a race. What the fight was like from winning a race to becoming chase eligible. From becoming chase eligible to winning the championship. I mean, there was a fight the whole year long of just overcoming obstacles and adversities and things like that that were kind of thrown at us and put in our way. And just really set in, and there was a lot of emotion shared in that night. To know I had a small piece of that big team to help rehab him back, and to see him come back and defy the odds and get the points and win races and become dominant, yeah, there was nothing going to stop him. It was awesome.
Now, I did want to mention when I asked Ken what the most common injury was that he sees between the drivers and the crew, and believe it or not, it's a lower back injury, suffered from flight to flight, from track to track for the 10-month-long NASCAR season. Reporting at Daytona International Speedway, Logan Sherrill, Fox 46 Sports, WJZY.
All right, thanks a lot, Logan. Kyle Busch will look for another good run today after finishing third at Daytona.
Welcome back. Cars flying around the track at 200 miles an hour. It's what we love about NASCAR. But what does it take to get those cars ready for 500 miles of racing? We went under the hood with one of Chase Elliott's mechanics to find out what it takes to get their engines roaring.
Hi, I'm Jordan Allen. I'm an interior mechanic for the number 24 Napa Auto Parts Chevrolet. An interior mechanic is responsible for everything inside the race car, from Chase Elliott's fire suit, helmet, shoes, gloves, to the seat, to the fire bottles. Anything inside is my responsibility. I have a checklist, so I try not to forget anything. If I forget something, things have gone really bad. On Chase's car, there's 12 people. There's 5 mechanics, 4 engineers, and a crew chief. Most of the time it's just helping out your fellow mechanic, just trying to make sure that everybody's got everything to go. Just watch each other's backs, because that's the best way to not make mistakes and not have anything break or any mechanical failures. We get here around 7, and usually our day ends when one of our cars are complete. We really don't have a set time to go home. It's not a 9-to-5 job. Everything is done here. When we leave this shop, the car is ready to hit the racetrack. We're in the garage when Chase is on the racetrack. You know, when he comes in, that's when we start to make our changes, make adjustments. If Chase needs anything inside the car, I'm there to help him out, make him feel comfortable, make him ready to go. I'm the last one to see him when he gets inside the race car, and I'm the first one to see him when he gets out. Chase is quite the professional at 20 years old. His mother and father raised him very well, so I usually don't have to give him much advice. You know, he knows what he's doing. I've been at Hendrick Motorsports for 7 years. 6 of those years I got to work with one of the greatest race car drivers ever, Jeff Gordon. It's been an honor and a privilege, and now I've taken everything that I've learned there and I get to apply it with Chase and try to help Chase become that next level, that next great superstar.
So a lot of folks will be sitting on their couch watching the drivers cruise around Atlanta Motor Speedway later today, and I bet there's a few saying, I can do that. Well, you can at the NASCAR Experience at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and as our Brian Blakeley found out, it's not as easy as it looks, but what a rush.
It is the absolute closest thing that you can get to a real race.
You drive a real stock car. You look like a NASCAR driver.
How's that feel? Pretty good.
Treated just like Jimmy or Jeff, but before you're handed the steering wheel to a very expensive race car.
You must stay on the apron or below the white line through turn 1.
You got to go to class with Michael Owens from NASCAR Experience.
Safety, safety, safety. That is our #1 priority.
After class, the anticipation builds as we get the final touches before hitting the track.
A little shaky right now. Move over, Junior and Joey, because here I come.
Then it's time.
All right, I got the 24 car. Push to talk, release to listen. One other thing I forgot to tell you. Yeah. Have fun. Yeah.
And I'm off. At first, I'm a little hesitant, feeling out the car, the track. This wasn't Park Road, I-77, or the Billy Graham Parkway. No, those steep banks into the curves were freaking me out. Then by my third lap, just when I thought I was getting the hang of it, this dude whizzes by me.
I was like, man, this thing's leaving me in the dust. I'm gonna have to pick it up a little bit. I'm gonna have to hit the backstretch and gun it.
Gun it, I did. Throwing all fear aside, trying to catch that bootlegger who left me in the dust.
People don't realize that these cars are set up to turn, and you have to trust your car. And if you stay in the gas more, it actually handles better. So faster is better.
I may not have caught grease lightning, but when I rolled into pit row, I was satisfied I left it all out on the track.
Go fast, turn left, and have a lot of fun. Yeah, man, that was great.
So am I ready for Daytona?
There you go. Turn around.
Brian Blakeley, he was in the 24 car. Actually, he may have got the track record. I don't know. He looked good out there. He did real good. He did real good.
Yeah, not quite. So how did I really do? 153, baby. Yes, the NASCAR experience is a must with friends and the whole family.
Who's your favorite race car?
Daddy.
Oh, Daddy.